Crazy here, but life is good.
80, 80, 80, 80 odd days worth of here. Welcome.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, feels good. Feels good, man.
Yes.
Feels
What did
good.
it feel like to make it across? Yeah, it's not your first rodeo, but it's the first time to get home when you're not broken. How?
Yeah. No, I mean that felt really, really, really special, and I cannot emphasize just how special that feels, because most people that go yacht racing, the concept of racing to the finish line is a given. You go around the cans and you don't think that anything dramatic is going to happen. And of
Mhm.
course, you're going to race the dude next to you to the finish line. But being able to do that at on the 85th day of a race around the world, when you've got 30,000 miles behind you
Mhm.
and you're still lining up and you're like trying to get a starboard priority on the guy next to you after that time, it just feels absolutely remarkable. And as well, doing that with a legend of the Vendee Globe, Jean came on his sixth Vendee, and under and maybe it doesn't show up in the photos, but the sky was completely clear with incredible stars, and so I just sort of had to pinch myself that on this beautiful, beautiful night with the glow of the town finally in front of us, and then trying to pick out his light as he's crossing just in front of the boat out of the lights of the town, and then looking up and seeing the incredible sky, and then realizing that I was in the fight for the podium with a legend of ocean racing. It's pretty cool. It was a cool moment.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
didn't, I haven't been able to tell you with regards to the keeled boats, what position did you come home in?
The Daggerwater boats, yeah. So we were fighting for the podium.
Yeah.
He got third, I got fourth,
Okay.
um, by 13 minutes and 31 seconds, um, and that was the closest ever finish in the history of the event, which is quite cool. And it would be quite interesting um, to do a comparison. I remember when I was working for the Volvo Ocean Race, and we wanted to try and put things in perspective as to how close the racing was. And that, after a 3,000 mile race, if you've got 20 minutes between the boats, then, that's equal to a thousandth of a second on a 100-meter sprint.
Hmm.
Some kind of thing like that. Well, it'd be
Hmm.
interesting to have some kind of visual representation of, like, do you win it? What does that mean? Do you win it by a nose? Do you win it by a thousandth of a second? Or, you know, line that up and put that in perspective, and just to show it just how close that was.
Yeah. It's the comparison with other Kiwi yachtsmen doing round the world races. We had a comment. Trevor's come on the website today and said, "Truly amazing effort. Blakey would have been impressed with you for sure." So you are being compared
Well,
to,
that's high praise. That's
yes,
high praise.
amazing
Yeah,
people. Um,
yeah.
First thing I'll ask you is Ashley's question. Um, through the whole race, did you have any encounters with wildlife? Any whales or sharks that you actually came head on into?
Head on is something we try and avoid.
Yeah.
Um, 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 no, I mean, in terms of wildlife, then it's primarily flying fish, lots and lots of lots and lots of
Mhm.
sargasso seaweed, um, and and seabirds, and did see dolphins for a bit, but not that much actually. And I'm actually thankful not to have seen whales, because a meeting between an Imoca that's fully launched and a whale that's definitely not is
Mhm.
not going to end up well for either one of us. So, and actually, to maybe to the casual observer, they didn't fully understand what the green boxes were as we went around the world.
Mhm.
And so obviously um, there's a big exclusion zone called the Antarctic exclusion zone all around the south. And so sometimes we're sort of bumping up against that as we went around the world. But there were also green boxes primarily around the Cape Verde Islands and also the Azores, and they were sort of biological exclusion zones. And so that's when there's a propensity for seeing whales, and so they pushed the entire fleet out of them. And so, it was thankfully job done. I didn't hear about any collisions at sea with whales certainly, and so it's part of the stewardship of the race. Not to go charging full bore through sensitive zones, and I think that the race direction did a good job.
Yeah, that's very, very true. You started off. We had on the very first day, which was a blessing in disguise, I guess we could say. And with hindsight, you started off. We had before you even started off, we had the rope around the prop.
Yep.
We then had you at the lead of the race when you mounted your comeback. That was a blessing in disguise. And then you went on. We had a sail incident, I think, and then we had the electrical incident where the batteries, I think the solar panels the solar panels in the end overheated everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I was keen on getting that story into the sort of documentary that we made about the start. Is that it shows just the incredible sort of whiplash that can happen even in the span of just a couple of hours or in one day in an event like the Vendee Globe. Lining up for the start, there's lots of pressure going on. You don't want to mess up the start.
No.
That we decided to do a relatively last minute sail change just before the start to set myself up for that. And the inexperience of my team showed, that it's been a tough few years of getting myself and the team prepared. We've had lots of turnover because I've had a very small budget, and so it's hard to keep people. Unfortunately, was preparing the boat with quite inexperienced guys, and under pressure, a mistake was made. I don't know by who, maybe by me, and we're in the circumstance. Other than what we're used to, which is having the engine running at the same time that we're doing a sail change. And so a line went in, got sucked around the prop, stopped the boat. That put me out of phase with the race, and that we have to get all of the shore crew off the boat 4 minutes before the start of the race. We were not able to respect that, and that then pushed me into the penalty zone, which means that I could restart after an hour. But on a separate, crucially on a separate start line. And so that sort of pushed me away from the rest of the fleet, which was all becalmed over here. And I went up to the coast, restarted 1 hour later, and then took the lead because I was in fresh breeze. And yeah, that's an incredible memory that I'm going to keep forever. It's rare already to participate in the Vendee Globe and to lead it overall, even for just a couple of hours, was truly remarkable, and that's really special.
It was so good to see.
Yeah. But then, as I said, that's representative of the craziness that happens sort of every day. There are ups and downs, and you mentally need to keep a pretty even keel to try and be stable between your ears. Because that when you're up, it's going to be down, and when it's down, you've got to fight like hell to make sure it goes up again. And so had one challenge where I was admittedly trying to save a little bit of energy, and I had left a sail on the leeward, packed up in its bag and strapped down with ratchet straps on the leeward side, just before a transition in the front. And so I was like, okay, so we've got 2 hours on this tack, and then the front's going to come through, and I'm gonna jibe around, and that's going to mean that sail is now going to be on the high side, and I don't need to drag it around the boat 3 times. And so I was trying to save this much energy, and I ended up losing this much energy because the spray on the leeward side is just so intense. It actually shredded the sail bag and ejected the sail over the side, blew up the ratchet straps. There was a forged steel hook that actually straightened out under the pressure. And that was with sail on the boat. It's amazing. Just the volume and the intensity of spray all over is really hard to comprehend.
Mm.
And so I ended up with a sail with a luff length of 28 meters long, folded in half through the sail bag, and then trailing in the wake with the boat launched at 25 knots. And so you can imagine the drag on that incredible sausage in the wake, just impossible for me to manage by myself, certainly with my own arms. And so the way to manage that was to slow the boat down, and then get a line around one part of it, and then with the winch and up to a snap block and pulley, and like slowly winch little bit by little bit by little bit back on board the boat, and figuring out a system where you had actually two lines doing that in succession, because you can't pull a bit up and then release that and then go back and get another bit, because then it all falls in the piss again.
Pulled in, yep.
So yeah, having two lines going, and then of course while I'm doing that, the front that I had expected comes through, so I've got 45 knots of wind, driving rain, and then also with the transition, with the wind shift, and then that lines you up in the waves in a different way, so that's incredibly unstable. And of course, working on the leeward side of the boat is uncomfortable. So I managed to get all of the sail on board the boat, but during that time I had eased the main, and the main had been sort of banging a little bit, and that blew up the bang system. And so it's just it shows that on such a big, powerful boat like an Open 60, if one thing goes wrong, you need to intervene immediately, because there's this incredible risk of this, snowballing out of, yeah. And the way that I talk about this is that the boat needs to stay small, because the boat in reality is big, even though in the middle of the ocean it feels very small. And the whole concept is trying to stay on top of on your boat, and you need to be anticipating everything. You need to be staying, a few maneuvers, a few steps ahead of the boat. And if you mess that up, then the boat gets real big real quick, because the sails are big and heavy, and if you just start dragging them around in an inopportune moment, or fighting against the elements rather than anticipating getting ahead of them, then yeah, it goes sideways real quick. So the whole concept is keeping this big boat as small as you possibly can, and that was one moment when it felt real big. So that was one example of course that was at night. And then you have to, you no longer have a sail bag, because it blew up, and so you can no longer keep that sail in the right place, or secure, and so now you need to dump it inside the boat. You've got this 28-meter long snake that's constantly underfoot. And then the bang system blew up, and so I made a jury rig system for that did the entire lap of the world. But it's not quite optimal, and so that increases your workload again, because you have to constantly adjust it and get it sorted in the right way. And then the electrical system, as your readers know, because we've been talking about this as a key component of my race, and the philosophy behind it is, trying to be a good green Kiwi, is go around the world without any fossil fuels, and demonstrate that that's possible, and thus allow for both myself and other actors, to push the race and the event and the class to adopt this as standard operating practice. I've done it twice now, and demonstrated that with a different mix of technology, you can do it different ways, and you can still adhere to the same principle. And so there's no reason not to be doing this. And so I, in the preparation for this race, cover the boat in Solbian solar panels, which are these sort of plastic, flexible solar panels that can take the shape of the curved boat underneath them. So they're really, really great products. You can jump up and down, dance the Macarena on them. They'll last through anything. And down in the South Atlantic, had a beautiful sunny day. Fantastic, charging the batteries, producing 40 watts even, so at 24 volts. So that's a lot of wattage. And unfortunately, it seems like one of the electrician that I had working with me had poorly configured the sorry, I am actively translating French back to
Yeah.
English, back to
Yeah.
Kiwi. Had poorly configured one of the charge controllers, and that allowed for a basically an overcharge that got ejected into the boat system. And it's not a fault with the solar panels, and they were doing their job. They were making electricity. It's up to the charge controller to do its job, and it was not set up to do its job, it seems. And so the boat is running 24 volts, and in a way that allows us to be more efficient than running 12 volts. And we ended up with 33 volts running through the whole system. And so that fried several components. Even they were behind fuses, the fuses blew, and yet still the components behind the fuses
Wow.
were exposed to the high voltage and also blew up. And the components that blew up were my autopilot, my keel control box to control the canting keel, and my satellite communication system. So three pretty key components on board the boat, all gone. I had a backup pilot and was able to rejig the wiring harness so that I could bring that one back online. But the keel box and the satcoms was more complicated. We do have two parallel systems on satellite communication. So I lost my primary one. I was able to switch over to the backup, and still have a running conversation with the electricians as to how to get this thing up and running. And while the keel control system was not working, I had to hand pump the keel from one side to the other when I was doing maneuvers, and that's a big job. Because the keel ram is able to push this 4-ton keel from 38 degrees from one side to 38 degrees the other side, and its operating pressure is 200 bar, and there's a lot of volume of oil you need to pump from one side to the other to get the keel across, and you've got a hand pump like this, and so it's not like I had a surplus of energy at that point. So
how long were you your hydraulic pump for?
I was down for 3 days. And the way I got it back was I disassembled the keel control computer, which has a printed circuit board, and I was instructed to cut off some of the diodes on the printed circuit board, on the solid circuit board, and so that's again on a boat that's fully launched in the South Atlantic, and doing 20 odd knots, and I'm there with a pair of fine pliers and a pair of flush cutter pliers, doing an intervention on a solid circuit board, and cutting off individual diodes and legs of circuits. And so the best parallel that I had for that was sort of doing brain surgery on the back of a galloping horse underneath the rain shower. And that's what it certainly felt like.
Yep.
So I managed to get the keel system up and running again, and so that was good. And then likewise, to get the primary satcom system up, then I had to do exactly the same thing: disassemble an electrical box that had been glued together to be completely watertight, and so slowly go into the box, pull apart the different components, and get the circuit board that was the right one, cut off the blown diode, put it all back together. Waterproof it back up, pray that it's going to work, and then go. So this is just kind of sort of standard operating practice as to how you keep a complicated boat alive in incredibly challenging circumstances. Yeah.
Just amazing. Now, just I could be wrong. I think around about your third Cape, just the bottom of South America.
Yep, Cape Horn.
Yep, I think there was a period where I interpreted a lot of some of your videos and some of your comments. You'd sort of you became a little bit not depressed. It's a little bit too dramatic, but you felt the weight of the world on your shoulders. Did I interpret it right? Did you obviously emotions go up and down? How did you cope with that? And did it happen very often, or did it happen at all? Am I just imagining things that didn't happen?
No, I mean, by the time that I got to Cape Horn, I was feeling pretty good. But just in the middle of the Pacific, there was a very tense moment, and that was, and maybe that's what you're referring to, is that I've already referred to it, but you've got you know, the ice exclusion zone like
Yes.
this, and we were cruising around the top of it, and um, for the reasons of equity, once the leaders of the race have gone through, they lock the exclusion zone in place because they don't want to be, modifying that barrier and then
Mhm.
having people, later on in the race sailing more distance or whatever, and then that opens you up to the race was not fair.
Mhm.
Um, I don't necessarily agree with that because I think safety, when you're talking about this middle of the Southern Ocean by yourself, and certainly collisions with icebergs, safety should be paramount,
Mhm.
even over equity in the sort of racing domain. But anyway, that's how they do it. So they've got a line, and then as the situation evolves, they keep looking at the zone to see what the situation with the icebergs is. And so there are a bunch of satellites overhead that with radar and also cameras, with I think artificial intelligence and analysis on the photos. They're looking for icebergs, and they had observed that there were icebergs that were traversing this barrier and they were ending up on the race course. And so the race direction didn't modify the zone. They just said, there are big blocks out there. And then they gave us the approximate drift analysis on, here's their position. They're kind of going this way. It's for you to plot their position.
Mhm.
And, inshallah, good luck. um, and that was incredibly tense, because we were sailing full speed into a minefield, literally. And if you bump into anything, then it's game over. It's going to blow up the boat. You're at Point Nemo. You're thousands of miles away from rescue. There's nobody else that's going to come and get you. And so it's a pretty high stakes game.
Mhm.
And I was one of the three slayers, I think, that saw an iceberg, and came pretty close. I think I was 2 miles away from it. And when you see a massive chunk of Antarctica sitting out there in the middle of the ocean, 2 miles is not enough.
You sent
And
back
so
some
this is it.
amazing photos of it. It was
Yeah,
really
that's right. Yeah,
very
I
close.
made a video, and so I'd encourage people that are watching this,
Mm.
to go and watch the backlog of videos that I put on YouTube that have tried to catalog this race as much as possible.
Mhm.
And so I saw this, and I had my drone that was charged, and so I sent the drone up to go look for obstacles in my path. Um, and I had this is my fourth race around the world as a skipper, and in my first race I had also seen an iceberg, and I can tell you that you do not sleep at all, um, when you're in iceberg zone. And I mean, it's stupid because you can't do anything really to avoid them, certainly not
Mm.
at night, because they don't show up on radar. Uh, and there are some people. I didn't have one because I had a small budget, but there are some people that have thermal cameras at the top of their mast, and the delta in temperature between the iceberg and the seawater is so minimal that they don't really
Mm.
show up on thermal cameras as well.
Yeah.
And so it's really like Russian roulette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
So made it through that zone. Thankfully, had a bit of a thrill seeing the berg,
Mm.
and then launched myself into the last part of the basin, of the South Pacific. And there we had quite strong winds, and I was able to, since my electrical system blew up in the South Atlantic, all the way through the Indian and the Pacific, I was kind of in catch-up mode, trying to get back into the group that I belonged in, that I should have been with.
Mm.
And so I put the watts on, and I feel pretty confident, with myself and with the boat, in strong conditions, and that's where I thrive, and that's where I'm able to make a difference with the other competitors. And
Mhm.
so I absolutely sent it, in the last part of the Pacific.
Yep.
Overtook a bunch of boats, took past a group, still had some other guys ahead, but we're taking chunks out of them, so
Mhm.
going really well. And then made it to Cape Horn, and there it had this incredibly bizarre dynamic because on the approach to the Horn, a number of boats had decided to sort of pack it in and say, the wind is too strong, we're not going to go, and we're going to chill out here for 3 or 4 days and wait for the storm to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And my analysis of the situation was that it was going to be fine. And so, continued on and went to the Horn and actually got becalmed right next to the famous rock of Cape Horn. And the weather forecast showed that there was a little bit of breeze. It was going to be okay. I got completely stuck. And so this sort of mythical rock in the middle, it's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I was sitting there going, "Oh, I want to see it. I want to see it. Finally, I want to see it." And then I got stuck. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm done with this rock. I want to keep going on. I don't want to see it anymore." So, moved on, and then a bunch of the boats had caught back up to me at that point. And so we were now crossing tacks immediately after the Horn with building breeze. And so first super, super light, all sailing full main, code 0. And then reef 1, J2. And then in that moment, you need to drop the code 0 and sort of batten down the hatches and get ready for the blow.
Yep.
I did that maneuver cleanly. Another sailor did not, and they broke the halyard while they were dropping the code 0, and it went down in the water around the keel. So that was Gary Kitsude. And he actually had to swim under the boat just after Cape Horn to free the sail. And so that's also an incredible story. But yeah, on the approach to the Falklands, we were trading tacks with the fleet, and again ended up in sort of 40 knots upwind, 3 reefs, storm jib, and then going up past the Falklands, we had this big blow, and that was the one that scared the other sailors that stopped them from going. But again, I felt confident in the strong conditions. I was there to make a difference relative to the fleet, so absolutely sent it up to this super strong wind corridor that we had, and I was able to go from a quality with them to eking out 60 miles of lead. And that 60 miles was absolutely crucial, and I knew it was, because after the strong wind we had an anticyclone with light winds again, and if I could make it through, then I was going to be golden. I was the only one that made it through, and so that 60 miles turned into 1,000 miles and all the way up the South Atlantic, and then I was in the clear from the group behind, and I was chasing down the last few boats ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, it was fantastic. And watching you come up there, you were just, each day you were knocking off, well, before that, just person finishing 21st position. You're home again. You are gonna take surely longer than this to rest and recover. Are you gonna do another Vendee? Are you now in preparation mode for the next Vendee around the world?
There's a little bit of tension there because, good Lord, I need a break. My mind, my body, my emotions are all pretty smoked, to be fair. And yet, as you say, I cannot resist looking over the horizon again. All good sailors do it. And absolutely, I've done two Vendees. I want to do a third. My ultimate ambition is to get to the start line as an equal with the top guys, and then we'll let the race play out as it happens. But what that means is finding a sponsor or a family of sponsors that will allow me to either buy or build a boat that will allow me to be competitive with the others. So that I'm looking at a next generation foiling Amoka. I not just saying this myself, but also relying on comments from those in the sailing community, that they've seen that consistently I have outsailed the boat that I've had. I did that in 2016. I was playing a long way up the fleet and a bit of an old dunger that should had no place being there, and I've done that again with this boat. If you think that I had a boat from 2007. To put that in perspective, that's when the first iPhone was launched, and I was racing against Jean Le Cam at the finish line, who had a new boat So it's putting the original iPhone up against the iPhone 16.
It ain't
Technically
gonna
there was a
work.
big difference, and
Yep.
yet I was there racing him.
Yep.
And so I think I've more than proved my worth as the years have gone by, and I'm happy with the way that I sailed this race. I think I sailed with a great deal of maturity. All of my sails are on board in one piece. I took some pretty committed options strategically, and sort of wasn't afraid to sort of strike out on my own and go looking for opportunities. Not all of them worked, but some of them did.
Some of them did.
And yeah. And so I feel really good about that. I was able to back myself, and now I'm looking for people that are willing to back me. I think I told a good story as I went along. I put on a good show with a competitive entry with what I had. And so yeah, absolutely. The One Day Globe 2028 is absolutely
Your next goal.
what I'm aiming for. But then crucially, Chris, and you know this, there's this other race around the world that's sort of been giving me the side eye as things have been going along. And the race. New Zealand has got a long history, obviously, with Whitbread and the Volvo and what's now called the Ocean Race.
Yep.
And that for me, I've done the solo thing a lot now, and I really want to sort of position myself where I can share both share what I have learned, but also nourish myself from the experience of others. And so equally, the priority is putting together a Kiwi team for the Ocean Race, and really setting us up to fly the flag for New Zealand, and be able to benefit from the fusion between the French shorthanded solo ocean racing world, and that I've now become part of, but I'm the only Kiwi to come and do this. And the existing culture of the ocean race of team racing, and I think I'm pretty well positioned, sort of in the middle of that, and being able, I've done bits and bobs of the ocean race. I've worked as a specialist navigator. I've worked as a captain. I've done the job myself, and now I want to sort of move into the role not only of a skipper and a team manager myself, but also as a facilitator to help get others out on the water. Because the role, it's not been easy coming here in isolation and doing what I've done and creating what I have. And now I've got I'm going to create the opportunity so I can help others come and do this as well.
When is the next ocean race?
January of 2027. So the clock is ticking. And so that'll mean that that we're doing the stopover in summer of 27. I don't know the exact dates in New Zealand. I know that negotiations are ongoing, but they're going well. It seems to have a stopover in Auckland. And yeah, the goal is to help bring the race to Auckland, and by doing so, get Kiwis out on the water and fly the flag again, because New Zealanders historically have been very resilient, gung ho. It's not for nothing that we all have wedding bands made out of number 8 fence and wire or something like that.
You never know when you're going to need
and
it.
I think exactly. And so I think the ocean racing, and particularly short-handed ocean racing, is something that can really match up with the Kiwi psyche, because obviously Team New Zealand has been doing something absolutely incredible by showing the world what we can do as a big team. But I think in the IMOCA world, with 4 sailors, fully crewed is 4 sailors. So you have to be incredibly self-reliant. You have to be incredibly diverse in the skill set that you bring to the table. Each person within that. When you've got 4, you don't have room for specialists. And so I think that really works. You have to be self-reliant. You have to be able to focus on it. Have faith in the guy or girl sitting next to you. But yeah, I just to help bring it back to New Zealand.
Very cool. Have you progressed much in putting together options for a team or speaking to anyone, or this is the embryo that you're just starting to work on?
Um, there are some conversations underway, but this is admittedly embryonic,
Mhm.
and I've strangely had a little thing on my plate up until now. Uh, um, and so it's only now that I've got sort of the clarity of mind and time on my hands to fully direct my energy into this. But that's certainly what's going to be taking up my energy from now, trying to make connections within New Zealand, within the New Zealand marine industry, and obviously do something that's quite remarkable, and that is put together a fully crewed ocean racing team for 2027, and then in 2028 go and do the same thing in principle, but by myself again. So
Yeah, I was just while we've been talking, I was quickly checking how far. So the Volvo or the Ocean Race, 45,000 nautical miles.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's not telling me how long the winner took last time. Have you got time to race an ocean race and be back in time to race the next
Yeah,
Vendee?
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is all done in collaboration between the Ocean Race and the Imoca World,
Okay.
because the Ocean Race uses the Imoca boats,
Yep.
and it is part of the calendar, and absolutely you can do both.
Yep.
And indeed, I would argue that there's no better way to do the Vendee in 28 than having done the Ocean Race fully crewed,
Yep.
the year before.
Yep. The gold
That
before the run.
in Formula One, all the drivers go out with their bicycles, and they cruise around the racetrack, and they look at where they want to take the corner, and all of the little specific details.
Mhm.
And so they do their track walk before they go out there full bore.
Yep.
And this is kind of the opportunity to go and do that, is to figure things out, try things on, and figure out which sails you want, and how you go.